Hello and welcome. Today we're going to continue our discussion on graphing quadratic equations by identifying the vertex and creating our own charts to graph each quadratic equation. First, I'd like to recall how to graph quadratic equations when you are given the chart. Here I provide the charts for you, so all we're going to do are plug in each of the x values to identify the corresponding y values and then plot each of those points to create our graph. Remember, this notation simply means y instead of f of x, just a different way to say y. What I'm going to do is input my -3 for x, so f of -3, or we can interpret that as the y value when x is 3, is 3 times -3 squared plus 6 times -3 minus 1. 3 times -3 squared becomes 3 times 9. Minus 18 minus 1. 3 times 9 is 27 minus 18 minus 1. 27 minus 18 is 9 minus 1 is 8. So the y value that corresponds with -3 is 8. You can go ahead and complete the chart from here, so please go ahead and pause the video and do so. These are the values you should have for each of your y values. I'm going to go ahead and now plot those points. -3, 8, -2, 1, -1, -1, -4, 0, -1, and 1, 8. Now connecting these dots in a smooth curve will create our U shape, which we call a parabola. Go ahead and pause the video and try the next one on your own. Your table and your graph should look something like this. Now notice the first and the second look a little bit different because one is facing upwards and the other is facing downwards. We'll go into detail about this a little bit later. I would now like to take a moment to cover some key terms. I know that we talked about these in our previous lesson, but just for the sake of the rest of our lesson, I'd like to talk about them briefly again. One key component of a parabola is its vertex. This is the highest or lowest point in the graph, or the peak of a graph. The axis of symmetry is a vertical line through the vertex over which the graph is symmetrical, meaning the same on both the left and the right of the graph. The max and the minimums are the greatest and or least possible values of your parabola. You will only have one or the other. This is the y value of the vertex. So in the following graph, I'm going to identify first the vertex. That's going to be, in this case, the very lowest point on the graph, which would be here. That is the point 1 for x, -4 for y. Your axis of symmetry is a vertical line through that vertex. The graph is the same on the left and the right of this graph. That's why we call it the axis of symmetry. Any vertical line has the equation x equals a constant, and here the constant is +1. So that equation has the form x equals 1. The minimum value is simply the y value of the vertex. It is a minimum since the graph cannot go any lower than that point. There is no maximum to this graph because the graph may go up forever. On this next slide, we're going to go ahead and graph the quadratic and then complete the missing information down here in these A through G steps. As before, I'll complete the first element of the chart, and then I'd like for you to pause the video and complete the rest of the chart and the graph on your own. First, I'm going to plug in my -5, so f of -5 is -5 all squared plus 6 times -5 minus 3. -5 squared is 25. 6 times -5 is -30 minus 3. 25 minus 30 is -5, minus 3 is a -8. So the y value when x is -5 is -8. Go ahead and pause the video, complete the rest of the chart and the graph on your own. Some of these points won't exactly fit on your graph, but I'm going to go ahead and do the best I can. I've got -5, -8, that is here. -4, -11, that's just below the edge of my graph, and -3, -12, which would be just below that. After that, I've got -2, -11, and -1, -8. Your graph looks something like this. And to fill in your information, the graph opens upwards. The vertex will be the lowest point on the graph, and that point is right here, which from our chart is this middle point, -3, -12. The axis of symmetry is the vertical line that goes through that vertex. Remember, any vertical line has the form x equals a constant number, and here the x value is a -3, so x equals -3. The minimum value is the y value of the vertex. Here it does have a minimum since it opens upwards and it continues increasing upwards forever, but this value here at the vertex is the smallest we will get. The minimum value is a -12. That's the y value of the vertex. The number of x-intercepts, if we were to increase this graph following its path as it should go, you will see that it will cross the x-axis twice, so it does have 2 x-intercepts, but it will only ever cross the y-axis once, so there is only 1 y-intercept. We'll go ahead and now find f of 6 as we are requested. So plugging that in, f of 6 equals 6 squared plus 6 times 6 minus 3 is 36 plus 36 minus 3, 72 minus 3 is 69. So the y value when x is 6 is 69. So on your graph, if we were to graph this, we would go right 6 and up to that y value of 69, which is obviously beyond our graph. Go ahead and take a moment to pause the video and try this next slide on your own. Now please go ahead and take a moment to check your work. And we'll go ahead and move on. From here, what I'm going to do is begin explaining how to identify the values that should go into your chart. First, we're going to discuss standard form of a parabola, and then we're going to talk about how to find the vertex of your parabola. So please remember, standard form of a parabola or of any quadratic starts with the highest exponent, the x squared. The coefficient we call a, or that number in front of the x squared we call a. The powers on x decrease, and we call the coefficients b and c. C is your constant term with no variable attached. Knowing this, we can identify the x value of the vertex using the following formula. X equals -b over 2 times a. So in the following 6 examples, we're going to first identify your a, b, and c, and then find the x value of that vertex. So here my a value is 2, my b value is 12, my c value is 17. The vertex is -b, so -12 over 2 times a, which is 2. This reduces down to -12 over 4, which is -3. That is only the x value of your vertex. If we wanted the y value, we would take this -3 and plug it back in to find our y. To the right, my a is -2, b is 16, c is -29. The x value of your vertex is -b, so -16 over 2 times a. A is -2. This simplifies to -16 over -4, which reduces to +4. Again, this is our x value. If we want the y value, we plug it back in. Go ahead and pause the video and complete the next 4 on your own. First, you should have an x value of -3, an x value of 4, an x value of 1, and last, an x value again of -3. Now we're going to create our own charts and graph our parabola using those charts. Step 1. We're going to identify the vertex. So looking here at this equation, I need to find my A, my B, and my C values. A is -3, B is a +6, and C is a -1. To find the vertex, I use my formula where x equals -b over 2a. Now remember, this is just the x value. So here, x equals -6 over 2 times -3. This simplifies to -6 over -6, which reduces to +1. This is just the x value. I need the y value as well to find the whole vertex. So I plug my x value in. F of 1 equals -3 times 1 squared plus 6 times 1 minus 1 is -3 times 1, which is just -3, plus 6 minus 1, which simplifies to +2. So the vertex has an x value of +1 and a y value of 2. Again, we used our formula where x equals -b over 2a to find the x value, which was 1. We then plugged in that x value to find the y value, which was 2. Step 2. We choose 2 x values on either side of the vertex. So I'm going to create my chart now. X and y. I'll put the vertex right in the middle, 1 and 2. I want 2 x values that are smaller than that, so I'll go 0, -1. And I want 2 x values that are larger than this, so I'll go 2 and 3. Step 3, we solve for the y value of each point. So we plug in -1 for x to our equation to find the y value for that first point. -3 times 1 squared is -3 times 1, which is just -3. 6 times -1 is -6, minus 1. -3 minus 6 minus 1 is -10. So our first point is a -10. Plugging in a 0. F of 0 is -3 times 0 squared plus 6 times 0 minus 1. -3 times 0 is 0. 6 times 0 is 0. Minus 1 is just -1. You can complete the next two. You should get a -1 and a -10. Step 4. We plot the points and graph our parabola. So I have the point -1, -10. I have the point 0, -1. I have the point 1, 2. I have the point 2, -1. And my last point is 3, -10. Connecting all those points together in a smooth curve, I create the graph of my parabola. This is a downward facing parabola and has a maximum value of 2. The axis of symmetry goes right down the middle of this graph. Remember, it has the equation x equals a constant number. In this case, that constant number is a +1. So my axis of symmetry has the equation x equals +1. Go ahead and try this next one on your own after pausing the video. Your chart and graph should look something like this. Your vertex should be here at the point 2, -4, giving you a minimum value of -4. Your axis of symmetry is that vertical line through the vertex, again having the form where x equals a constant number. And here, that constant number is a +2. So the equation for your axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.